Hello everyone, how are you? This is a story that I'm going to read to you about my little mouse. You see my little mouse? He is the center of the story. So we're going to put him up here. Maybe he wants to lie down there and listen to the story with all of you. Okay? I'm going to put him right over here. Okay, it's called The Mouse in the Matzah Factory. And it's written by Francine Medoff and illustrated by Nicole Inden-Bosch. Here's the little mouse. Let's see what the story's about. Once there was a little mouse who lived in a wheat field in the country. One day, men came and built a fence around the wheat field. Every day they watched over the growing wheat. They watered the field, pulled the weeds, and waited for the wheat to ripen. The little mouse watched too. The little mouse wondered what was so special about this wheat. When the wheat was ripe, the men cut it down. They worked carefully, making sure to keep the wheat dry. They tied it in bundles and loaded it into a wagon. The little mouse decided to follow the wheat, and soon the wagon arrived at the mill. The little mouse poked around until he found a hole in the bottom of the door, and he crept inside. Huge grinding wheels were crushing the wheat into fine flour. The millers carefully poured the flour into sacks and loaded them into a truck. The little mouse jumped aboard the truck and hid amongst the sacks. You see him over here? There's the little mouse. They drove for a long time. They left the country with its open fields and came to the city. The little mouse peeked out. It's a city. Do you think the little mouse has been in a city before? He saw tall buildings. He saw crowds of people. And he heard the noises of cars and trucks on the street. Beep, beep, honk, honk. There were a lot of people in the city. At last, the truck stopped in front of an old building. Workers came to unload the sacks of flour. Quickly and quietly, the little mouse jumped down and followed them. An inspector stood at the door, checking to see that each flour sack was dry and tightly closed. The little mouse was afraid he would be discovered, so he climbed up to a window ledge. He squeezed through a crack, and he hid behind the clock. Do you see the big clock? Tick-tock, tick-tock. He saw a large room with many people. They were all very busy. In one area, workers were unloading the sacks of flour. In another place, they were bringing in buckets of water. And in the middle was a man with a mixing bowl. When the mixing man called out, the flour man scooped a cup of flour from the sack, reached through a little window and dumped the flour into the bowl. When the mixing man called out again, the water man filled the pitcher with water, passed it through the window, and poured the water into the bowl. The mixing man worked very quickly, mixing the flour and the water into a lump of dough. Yeah, what do you think they're making? I think so too. The little mouse watched. See? He watched and watched and watched. He wondered what was so special about this dough. The mixing man brought the dough to another area where many people stood at a long table. He gave a piece of dough to each person, and very quickly they rolled their dough into circles. Going back up there, little mouse. The circles were passed to another table, where a woman poked holes into them with a special tool. She lined up the circles on a rack near a brick oven. There's the oven, brick oven. The baker slid the circles into the oven, and minutes later they were crisp and brown. A delicious smell filled the room as he took them out of the oven and placed them on a rolling cart. You see the baker? Oops. All of a sudden a bell rang. The people began to clean the work areas. They scrubbed the tables, sanded down the rolling pins, and washed and dried the bowls. And when they finished, the mixing man reset the clock, called out for more flour and more water. It says over here, 18 minutes from start to finish. The little mouse couldn't resist the delicious smell. He followed the cart into a room where people were packaging the baked circles into boxes and tying them with string. I know, they smell really good. Yum, yum, yum. Families were standing in line to buy the boxes. The mouse hopped onto the counter to take a peek. Look how many people are coming to the store to buy the special dough. Do you know what it's called? Yeah, it's called matzah. This is what the mouse read. It says, this matzah is made of wheat, which has been watched from the time of harvest through the time of baking. Matzah. That's right, the little mouse thought. I watched the matzah. I watched it from the time the wheat began to grow in my field. I watched it being harvested. I watched it being ground into flour. I watched it being mixed into dough. And I watched it being baked into matzah. I saw the whole process. Yep, you did. The little mouse felt very important. He decided it was time to return to the country. Soon more wheat would be planted, and he wanted to be home in time to watch it grow. Would you like to get out a bowl now? Take out your bowl, put in some flour, take a little bit of water, a little bit of salt, mix it all together. Mixing flour and kneading dough, kneading dough, kneading dough. Mixing flour and kneading dough. We all bake matzah together. And you roll it out, and take a fork and prick little holes all over the matzah very quickly. Then slide it into the oven and wait for it to get really crispy. And when the oven bell goes, quickly open the oven, take them out, lay them out to cool, and soon you'll be able to have delicious crispy matzah in time for Passover. Enjoy baking your matzah. Bye.